passing a person that just died a couple of days ago, and that would be David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash. And I've been following him for decades, and I enjoyed his vocals and some of the things that they wrote. So David Crosby's no longer with us, and it reminds me of a time that a person called me on the phone and they wanted to be immersed really quickly because they realized that they were going to die one day. And this was a fairly young man, and a friend of his, a very, very close friend that he'd grown up with, had perished and didn't know Yahusha at all. He was misled by evolution, probably, and, you know, the school system. And he saw his friend lying in the casket, and it drove him to the telephone to talk to me about what he had to do to be, you know, to receive eternal life and be ready for death, you know. So David's no longer with us. He didn't call me, by the way. David died somehow. They haven't released the reason for his death, but he was just over 80 years old or so, 81 to 83. The reports are different. A lot of people in their late 70s are perishing. Anyway, that was a little bit of a sad news, and I just wanted to let everybody know that he'll be missed. Deception by Tradition. That's the name of this one. It's going to be really short. But I just want to remind you that it's easy to deceive people, but it's very difficult to convince them that they've been deceived. Take the relics that people have believed in since the Middle Ages. All these relics just popped up during the Middle Ages. Wonder why? Maybe the Crusades, you know. There was a bishop. It was an archbishop before that. He was just a nobleman, but his name was Thomas Becket. And he lived in Canterbury, England, near London. And he's buried in the Canterbury Cathedral. And he was the bishop there. And you might remember Geoffrey Chaucer from your high school days. He wrote a book called The Canterbury Tales. And that's a fictional story, but it's about pilgrims. About 30 pilgrims that were going on a trip as pilgrims to go pay homage to Thomas Becket, a living person at that time, apparently. He's not living now, though, and neither are those 30 pilgrims. So wake up. Let's get with the program and stop following traditions. Traditions are the biggest thing that deceive us. And one of the things that we've inherited since the last less than 500 years is this name J-E-S-U-S. A lot of us, Natsarim today, that are arising suddenly around the world, quickening, to the truth, are living by the commandments now. And that's heresy to the Christian church, the Christian circus. We call it the circus. And we call the J-E-S-U-S the J-Man, because it's an artificial construction of a name that doesn't even mean anything. At least nothing that meant anything before. We know what it sounds like, but it's not anything at all. It's not Hebrew, so it's not inspired. If a prophet didn't write it, why are you using that name? Because no prophet ever wrote J-E-S-U-S. It's less than 500 years old. Stop the foolishness. His real name is Yahusha. Yahusha HaMashiach, the Messiah. That's what the Mashiach means. Ha-Mashiach means the Messiah. And that's his real and only name. But it's been concealed by this replacement name, J-E-S-U-S, that has no meaning, and it did not exist more than 500 years ago. It's less than 500 years old. There's only one inspired name, and it's Hebrew. Of course. It's not Greek or Latin or a fusion of the two. And it's certainly not English. if you've been taught that his name is Jesus, and then you heard later that his name is something else, well, we speak English. Well, good for you. You're babbling. But what does that have to do with Yahusha's name? If you don't know his name, you've just been programmed by tradition. Deception by tradition. Acts 4:12 says there's only one name that we can call on for deliverance. And it's not Jesus. If you can do a little research, it'll prove it to you. The truth is difficult to acquire due to the habit of tradition. But with patient study, we will eventually synthesize to purge the dross. I'm impressed with the way it was put by a 12th century Jewish Rambam. That's what they call him, the Rambam. His real name was Maimonides, and he wrote this in the 12th century. Quote, "Men like the opinions to which they have been accustomed from their youth. They defend them and shun contrary views. And this is one of the things that prevents men from finding truth, for they cling to the opinion of habit." That was Maimonides from a book that he wrote called The Guide for the Perplexed. Well, let's stop being perplexed. Let's get into the truth. Search out everything that you hear. And if you hear a pastor teaching you something that sounds fishy, go to the pastor and ask him where he heard about it. And he'll probably, tell you that it was just tradition or a council or something. But it wasn't by a prophet. And if it wasn't, drop it. Go to his real name. And look at my other videos that might discuss the name. His name is not Yeshua. That's just a Hebrew word that means deliver or deliverance. It means salvation, but it's just a word. It's not a proper noun. Except in one place it was used after the captivity in Babel, because they had shunned using the name of Yahuwah. And Yahusha was the name that it stood for. The son of Nun was named Yahusha. The same name as our Messiah. Check it out. Look it up in an interlinear translation right here online. We'll talk to you later, and thanks for watching and liking and subscribing. And come back and see us again. We'll see you later. Bye.